Welcome to The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens, with Colette Marie Stefan, inspiring shift on Transformation Talk Radio, gracing the airways every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific since 2013. And we're live on Facebook, providing nuggets of wisdom, tales from the vector, and energetic upgrades to lift you, shift you, and empower you to ride the wave of infinite potential. Do you have a problem? It is never what you think it is. Logical questions require creative solutions. Colette is a leading expert in the field of quantum energetic transformation. Learn to identify the usual energetic suspects and major accomplices to unveil another layer preventing you from living your authentic desires. You are a blank canvas. May as well paint a rainbow. We'd love to hear from you. Call 1-800-930-2819.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Transformation Talk Radio. The Truth is Funny with Caleb Matthews, guest speaker. For those of you who have been on live or later on with my shows, for filling in for Colette. Thank you, Colette, out there, wherever you are, for having me on the show. I love being on the show. It is one of the highlights of my month, or the couple times a month whenever I speak on the show. So many of you know who I am if you're tuning into the show, because you would have seen the advertisement for today's talk with my lovely mug on there. For those of you who don't know me, I am Caleb Matthews with Encompassed by Dreams. I am a dream interpretation consultant and a spiritual insurgent. What that means is I like to come around and stir up the water and really just get people thinking about MPA, multiple perspective advantage, and looking at life through the lens of this, interpreting life as if it's a dream, but also interpreting visions of the night season. I've got over 12, 13 years experience in doing dream interpretation, leading dream interpretation teams to different New Age festivals and fairs and psychic events, and also seminars and talk shows and events across the world and internationally and locally. Obviously, with the global pandemic, recently in the last year and a half or 2 years, I've been more sticking with online content such as this, which is wonderful to be able to speak in the airwaves. So welcome and thank you for coming on the show. I absolutely love having listeners, and also for people tuning in later on if you can't listen now. So be comfortable. Find a nice, comfortable place to listen, relax. If you're driving, of course, just keep driving and don't get into any accidents. But we are going to have a wonderful, enlightening, uplifting time today. So the topic is innovation shift, building personal character during difficult and unique times. So this is very important. Probably one of the more core value part of my life, and also important messages that I think I've probably ever presented on this show. Many of you over the months and last year and a half, couple of years of me being on the show, have heard me talk about seeing from multiple perspective advantage, dream interpretation, dealing with unusual times in the seasons that we're in, and also dealing with the four living creatures and the cloud of witnesses and all the heavenly activity and the hubbub and the stuff and the, just the realms of the spirit, and interacting with angels and seeing things in your dreams and understanding what those things are saying. And that's all great. And I'm a huge advocate for that. But the foundation and the roots that we have in our life to be able to uphold that heavy weight of revelation and nuggets of wisdom, and being able to keep the wheels moving of the motion, the culture and the economy of motion. Really, the wheels that uphold that is innovation, but more specifically character. So today we're going to talk about character. Many of you probably saw the introduction through Transformation Talk Radio's bio on what I was going to talk about today for the message, but also just what I was posting on my social media. And this is really going over the life of Joseph, who was second in command of ancient Egypt thousands of years ago. And he was able to find solutions through 3 different seasons of his life that was able to take a really sucky and terrible situation individually, personally, but also corporately, culturally, took a lot of really tumultuous seasons and a lot of unfair stuff that was thrown his way and his family's way and his nation's way. And he was able to flip that into something innovative and turn the tide. And really, that's what I want to address within Joseph's life, but also taking across the principalizing bridge to apply to our life. So, what is the principalizing bridge, Caleb? Well, the principalizing bridge is when we take a look at the ancient Hebraic text. We look at these examples of people who walked with the Creator, who walked with God. We look at their lives and say, this is what God was speaking to them. This is what the Creator was speaking to them. This is what the Spirit of life was speaking to them. And we take it across a bridge into our time and we translate that message, how we interpret that, how we see that in that lens, that MPA multiple perspective advantage lens, and we apply it to our lives. So I'm going to teach you how to do that today through the message. And that's part of the tools. What I'm going to do today is teach you how to do this in my message, but it's also tools that you'll be able to use for interpreting your dreams, because that's similar to how dream interpretation works. So a lot of content to cover today. We're going to do a little bit of a talk for the next 15 or 20 minutes. Then we're going to do a break. And then after the break, I'm going to conclude the talk. And then we're going to go into questions and answers and a few dream interpretations. So got my lovely host, Malia, standing by, and she will take callers and or even people who chat into the chat box later on. So stand by with that. Stick around for the end of the show. So innovation shift. This is the economy of the shift of motion. So we're on The Truth is Funny. And we like to smile and have a good time, have a good laugh. And that's one of the things I love about Colette. Whenever I've done live shows with her or live on the air tag teaming, or just seeing her in her dynamic, in her element at fairs and festivals and events, she delivers such truth nuggets, but also she does it with such joy and such happiness. And really, I love the title, The Truth is Funny, because truth, a lot of times people are like, oh, the truth, you got to tell the truth. And it's all so weighty and so serious and just, and there's a lot of truth to that. But we have to have fun and have joy and have happiness through our lives. And if we really can't get into having a childlike mentality, the mind of a child, being converted to the vision and the worldview of a child, we will never see the kingdom of light, the kingdom of heaven. Jesus, who is my higher power, my gate, my energy, my medium, he was a real man who walked the earth. I believe that, and it's historically documented. And when he walked the earth, through all the great parables and all the great messages that he spoke and all the inspiring things that he did to change human culture forever within, Jewish circles and Christian circles and also Islamic circles, as far as the impact he had on planting, the seeds of the movement of the followers of Yeshua and having an impact in the world. Of all the impact that he had, one of the greatest messages that Jesus spoke about when speaking of the kingdom of light and following him was, unless you become like a child, unless you become converted to the mindset and the reality and the worldview of a child, you will never see the kingdom of light. And what did Jesus mean when he said that? Well, what Jesus meant is that unless you are willing to embrace the simplicity, the humility, the joy, and the happiness of the way that a child sees the world, you're going to miss it. We're going to miss it. So we can't get too serious. We can't get too stuck up on, we always got to be serious. Always got to, do things, just in the Roman way, in the pagan way, in the archaic way of just having all our ducks lined up in a row. And it's good to be organized, but it's also good to have some joys. So I've got a coin jar here. And for those of you like myself who are huge fans of Charlie Brown and Snoopy and just the Peanuts gang, Peanuts, the comics and the cartoons over the years, these are classic. I was raised on the Charlie Brown and Snoopy and the Peanuts cartoons, which was really just a lot of fun. The Christmas specials, the Halloween specials, the the Easter specials, the different shows, Flash Beagle, where Snoopy's a dancer in one of the shows, and Charlie Brown and Friends, where they're gathering and talking about just the different deep stuff of life. But the Charlie Brown Christmas was is one of my classic family traditions to watch that every Christmas during the week of Christmas or during the holiday seasons. But it's a household staple and a must during the Christmas season. And one of the scenes in that, the beginning, is Charlie Brown is super depressed. He's really depressed. Because Charlie Brown, as you know, is a character. He's always got this cloud of, just overthinking things and really just trying to see the world. And sometimes he can really get down on himself. So Lucy, she's kind of like the advocate, the inspiring one, the one who really likes to just hustle and get everyone, involved and invite the group together to do something just really big and really epic and really exciting. And so she sees Charlie Brown's in a little bit of a dither, and she says, "Charlie Brown, come over here." And so she invites him to the doctor is in, and there's that little red table where she says, "5 cents, please. Before we begin, 5 cents, please, Charlie Brown." And Charlie Brown puts the coin inside the can, and Lucy says this, "Boy, what a sound, that wonderful sound of nickels, 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 nickels." And so, what a sound. So she wasn't willing to start the conversation with Charlie Brown before she heard the clinking and the clanging of the coins and the sound and of the currency. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, because Lucy was trading on the world currency, which most people stay in that level, but they're not really willing to go deeper. So she asked Charlie Brown a few questions, but she said a few things. One was really important. She said, "Do you have hyconthophobia? Do you have palliophasia? Do you have microtonophobia?" And she started listing all these fears. And she's like, "Are you afraid of responsibility?" to Charlie Brown. And that's the one I want to get on right there. And Charlie Brown is just like, "No, that's not it. No, that's not it." And so he's trying to figure out why he's missing the true meaning of Christmas. But all that aside, she asked Charlie Brown a very specific question. And this is an important one, even though Lucy's intentions and, she's trading for the money, and one really cared about the boy, what a sound, the money, nickels, 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 nickels. That's what she cared about. She had some truth in there in that conversation. And she said to Charlie Brown, "Are you afraid of responsibility?" And so I want to let that one sink in there. Are you afraid of responsibility? This is a big one in our culture right now. Is there such a fear of screwing it up? There's such a fear of, "Oh man, I'm afraid of taking on this responsibility. Oh, I'm afraid of getting it wrong," or "Man, all this stuff that's going on with the pandemic or my life, or just it's not fair, and I've been dealt a really bad hand, and things are so tough." And yes, life is absolutely going to pitch us some very tough seasons and tough times and difficult times. And what I've experienced is probably different than what you've experienced and what that person's experienced, and that person, no matter where you are. So we are all going through the pressure cooker of the trials and tribulations and the valleys and the seasons of our life. So I'm not going to pretend to sit here and know what you're going through, just like you can't pretend to know what I'm going through. So all of us are going through our own testings and trials and tribulations through the Creator, through the Spirit of God, through the Spirit of life. It is really how character is developed. And we are talking about that innovation shift, personal character development. And personal character development is the way that we're going to reach our goals. It's the way that we're going to have the stamina and the endurance to be able to keep up with what's coming and what we're entrusted with. True character is really what is able to hold up these giftings and these abilities. And you could see it too in athletes and entrepreneurs and different people in our society and culture. Somebody who isn't willing to paint out their goals and their core values and say, "Here's my core values, here's my goals, here's what I'm willing to stand for, here's what I'm willing to live for." If we aren't doing that and planning, calling into season the things of our future, if we're not looking ahead and we're not preparing and planning really for these difficult times, and we're sitting on our hands waiting in the retail mentality, just someone to walk through the door. I know that because I work at a retail store, and sometimes it can be a temptation. But if we're just sitting there waiting for the traffic to come, by the time that a crisis comes and a pandemic comes or difficulties hit us in the face right there in the moment, it's too late. So we have to have innovation. We have to have that economy of motion. We have to have no fear and we have to not get into the fear of responsibility. Do you have fear of responsibility? So I want you, next time you take all the coins in the jar and you remember that, even if you don't forget anything else that I said today. Remember Lucy's voice from the Charlie Brown and Snoopy show, Peanuts, saying to Charlie Brown, are you afraid of responsibility? Do not be afraid of responsibility. Responsibility is a blessing. It's a gift given by the Creator. It's a gift given by God for you and I to be able to take that personal responsibility and apply it to our lives. So don't get snared into the world system. And that's what I was talking about in competition and trading and this. Notice how at the beginning of the cartoon, Lucy was really, she wouldn't get into the conversation with Charlie Brown until she had the coins clinking in her jar. Am I saying that's not important to work for your keep or earn money or just to do that? We have to. We live in the world. At some level, we need to build that wealth and that gains in financial freedom, and also just increasing in influence. That's good. That's good. But a lot of the value systems, the pagan and the archaic Roman and pagan value systems of our world, is valuing the hustling, the trading, the bustling, the hobnobbing, the ladder climbing. And that's really where the main value is. And it manifests its way everything through sports clubs and business groups and friendship circles and social circles and just technology circles and business circles. It's really a stunted core value that's been taken too far. It's been inflamed too far. It's good to network, it's good to grow, but it's not good to treat the hustle and the bustle and doing whatever it takes to get a buck, and lacking the character. One of the things that one of my greatest mentors, who is no longer on the earth, he's in the cloud of witnesses. We spoke about the cloud of witnesses, John Paul Jackson, a true friend of mine, that he said if he ever had a choice between two employees to hire for his company, a 5-star employee who had 5-star character and only 1-star gifting versus someone with immense 5-star gifting and only 1-star character, he would always take the person with the 5-star character over the lack of gifting. Because he said you can teach gifting, you can learn gifting, but you can't learn character. You really can't learn having good morals and ethics and character once it's ingrained into you. It's a choice. So character will always win over gifting every single time. And that is why when I started learning these principles of dream interpretation over the years, homeschooling and being raised in a homeschooling family, and my mom really my parents established this core value in our family, learning the Hebraic ancient paths, a way of interpreting dreams, a way that Joseph and Daniel and Jesus and the disciples in the New Testament and people throughout the scriptures, they all learned about interpreting visions and dreams and mysteries. Character was always first. Character always came first. So let's get into even this more. So who is our greatest opponent? So one of my favorite sports is golf and tennis as well too. In golf, you're really competing against yourself because it's you and the ball on the course. Tennis, you're competing against opponent. But I always like to say to myself before I go into every match, before I go into every golf game, before I go into every tennis game, there may be an opponent on the other side of the net. There may be a golf course in front of you, but really I'm competing against myself. And that's what I want to encourage you with as the listener, as we go into our break in the next 5-10 minutes. We are competing against ourselves. Character development, innovation, building that character is we are competing against ourselves, not against somebody else, because the world system is, oh, how can I compete with Susie on my left or Ronald on my right or Doug on my right and Paul on my left? Like, it's all about trying to look over our shoulder and see what else somebody else is doing. And it's good to be inspired by others, but it's not good to try and carbon copy somebody and be a clone of somebody else. Our culture is so guilty of that. Everyone wants to be the next, fill in the blanks. Everyone wants to be the next Michael Jordan, or they want to be the next LeBron James, or they want to be the next Bill Gates. They want to be the next Jeff Bezos. They want to be the next politician. They want to be the next Kim Kardashian. They want to be the next, just fill in the blanks. Any celebrity that's in the public eye, next Oprah Winfrey, the next Conan O'Brien, like celebrities and individuals and personalities. And so Be you, be you, innovate yourself, your character, the God-given gift, and finding that light and finding that source that you can develop. Denzel Washington is one of my favorite examples of this. So Denzel Washington is one of my favorite movie actors and characters on the big screen. And so over the years, he talked about at one of his graduation ceremonies, he was speaking to a young college class graduates. He said, this amazing message on YouTube, you can look it up. It's called Falling Forward or Failing Forward, I think. And he talks about failure and how failure develops character, and character development is what got him along the path of his success. Because a lot of people that see the Denzel, oh, he's a big actor, he makes millions of dollars, he's got all this success. But failure and falling on his face and being rejected over and over again is really what built the muscle within Denzel to be able to walk through that door. Over the years, he mentions in this talk, in this message about falling forward, how he tried to get this Broadway or this musical performance spot as he was moving up into the musical theater portion and in his hometown. And he was rejected again and again and again by the screeners and the people that were hiring for the role. And he's always told, no, you just don't have what it takes. Sorry, you're not what we're looking for. You don't have it, man. You're just not meant to be in musical theater. You're not meant to be an actor. You got told all these different failures and this wall that he kept hitting. And so Denzel's like, he either could take that and be really crushed, or he thought, no, this is what God built me to do. This is what God formed me to be. I'm going to do this. So he has this phrase where he says, if you stick around the barbershop long enough, eventually you're going to get a haircut. And so Denzel kept on going to the theater, kept on going to every audition he could go to. And eventually, years and years and years later, as his movie career began to build, he finally got the part. But it took those months and those years of rejection and having other experiences in his life before finally he broke through. He got that part many, many, many years later. And sometimes it doesn't happen in our timing, but there's God's timing. So I'm going to build a framework around what we're going to go into next, and then we're going to do our questions and answers. So we've got 5 minutes until break. So I'm going to lay out the guidelines of Joseph, the seasons of Joseph, because we're now getting into meat of our conversation. And then we're going to go into a break, and then we're going to talk a little bit more, and then do some questions and answers and dream interpretation. So here's the next 5 minutes. I'm going to build the core of what I'm getting into now. So Joseph was a man who lived in ancient Egypt, who originally was not from Egypt. He was not born in Egypt. He was actually born an Israelite in the land of Canaan, the land of promise, the land of inheritance, the land of his ancestors, his forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's where he was from. So he had 3 seasons in his life. Many of you, we're talking about Broadway, we're talking about musicals, we're talking about these things. You have heard the Broadway musical Joseph and the multicolored dream coat. So whether you've gone to Sunday school or not, whether you're familiar with this, message or not, you'll know that Joseph had a beautiful coat of many colors that his father gave him, and his brothers were very, very jealous. And so they threw Joseph down a pit because Joseph was kind of proud. He's kind of arrogant. He had this visionary gift of dream interpretation, and he was flaunting it in front of his father and his brothers, and he's going to rule over them, and they're all going to bow to him. And so his brothers didn't understand his gift, which was wrong, but also Joseph, he needed a lesson in character. He wasn't there yet. He was bragging about his gifts. So he gets thrown in the pit. So his brothers sell him into slavery into Egypt. That's how he gets into Egypt. And then when he gets into Egypt, he gets promoted to the head administrator of Potiphar, who is like one of the highest ranking officials in the land of Egypt, to manage Potiphar's house. And Potiphar's wife, I've got 2 minutes till break. Thank you, Leah. Potiphar's wife tries to frame him and then tries to seduce him and sleep with him. And Joseph's like, no, I refuse. You are a married woman and I am serving my God, and I'm not going to do that. So then he gets thrown in jail. She claims that Joseph raped her, even though he didn't, which was a false accusation and claim. He gets thrown in prison. He has to spend time rotting in prison, another character development. And then coming through prison, he interprets some dreams of the butler and the baker in prison, gets promoted. They tell the Pharaoh of Egypt, who's having these troubling dreams, that Joseph is a man that can interpret dreams. They bring him out of jail. Joseph interprets dreams for Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh promotes him as the one who's second in command of all of Egypt to manage the famine that's coming. There's 7 years of plenty coming and 7 years of famine. So that's just a kind of a base story there. So he was promoted as the administrator of all of the land of Egypt, only second to Pharaoh, and he had to deal with the famine. So we're going to go into break. That was really quick as far as getting an introduction into Joseph. But Joseph, he went through 3 seasons. Personal season of rejection from his family. Another personal season of rejection and misunderstood in the workplace, but specifically falsely accused and framed and thrown in jail. And the 3rd season, promotion to where he's managing the land of all of Egypt, the empire of Egypt, and dealing with the famine. So we're going to talk about Joseph's innovation and his character development in those seasons as we return from break. So we must shift. So stick with me, ladies and gentlemen, as we go into the break, and I will see you on the other side in a few minutes. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for returning with me from the break. So I like to babble a lot, like talk a lot. I love talking. I love speaking, love inspiring, love preaching and sharing this message of innovation and character development to you. So wherever you are in the world, I just want to say welcome. In the beginning, I said welcome. I'm going to say welcome again. Welcome, whatever continent in the world, whatever city, whatever country, wherever you are tuning in from, I welcome you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, the Kadosh Ruach Yah, the holy breath of God, the spirit of life, the spirit of wisdom and understanding to fill and enlighten your senses and my senses, our senses, that we have a clear picture of what heaven is saying to us. So here we go. We are going to get into the next portion in the latter half of our message, and then go into some questions and dream interpretations at the end, if there is an appetite for that and as time permits. So Joseph, 3 seasons in his life. We spoke about the season of rejection from his family, his father and his brothers, and his babblings and his opening up of his mouth and bragging about his dream interpretation gift. He get thrown into the well, sold into slavery. We spoke about his promotion to Potiphar's house in the workplace. And as he's serving Potiphar, this magistrate in Egypt, he gets framed by Potiphar's wife, who is trying to seduce Joseph. And Joseph says, no, I must serve my master. And also, you are Potiphar's wife. I am not going to cheat on him with you, and you should be ashamed. She tries to grab him and he runs off, and she blames him and says to Potiphar, lies to Potiphar, that he tried to rape her, which he did not. He gets falsely accused, thrown in prison. As he's in prison, he meets a butler and a baker who are also put there, interprets their dreams correctly and interprets the future of what happens. Then Pharaoh hears through the butler that Joseph has a gift of dream interpretation. Joseph comes forth before the Pharaoh of all of Egypt, interprets a dream about 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine in Joseph's 2 dreams. And then Joseph gets promoted, and he becomes the second in command of all of Egypt. And so that's where we get into. So I want to point something out here for those of you who do not know the story, and those of you who do, to notice something very, very interesting here. Throughout Joseph's story, throughout Joseph's experience, these 3 seasons of his life that are spread over the span of many years, one thing that's unrelenting, one thing that does not change, is Joseph's innovation. Joseph's innovation of how he embraced the character lesson, the lesson that came his way. So did he grow through the 3 stages? Yes, he did. He grew and he embraced the character. He had pretty poor character at the beginning. He was a bragger. In the second portion, he was getting better and he was getting more trustworthy. And he was flying. He was soaring. He was having a lot of success. But then he got pitched another lesson. And then the 3rd phase, he absolutely came out with soaring colors, flying colors, and just aced it with the Pharaoh. Put his neck on the line, and literally he could have been killed if he got the interpretation wrong, or if he screwed up, or he just even blinked the wrong way. Pharaoh could have told him you're going to be executed. But what didn't change was Joseph's innovation, Joseph's creativity, Joseph's inclining ear to the Spirit of God that came forth from those lessons. So his character developed because he embraced those those lessons, and many of us, we have many lessons that come to us every day, every week, every month, every year. And there's a phrase that I use in my life with my friends, with my family, and with people I've talked with, and it's about going around the mountain. The creator God, the spirit of God, he takes us through life as life lessons to be able to learn these lessons to develop personal character. And when we get it right, we pass that lesson and we go on to the next, and we get entrusted with more giftings, with more responsibility. As I said from the beginning, are you afraid of responsibility? Charlie Brown. So Charlie Brown was willing, as he was sitting there at the booth, to get a little bit of training and inspiring wisdom from Lucy, and also knowing that he really had something missing, but he didn't know what it was. So he was embracing his character development at that moment. But we have to embrace our character development. We have lessons that are thrown across our path, like Joseph, every day. And here's this going across the principalizing bridge now. I'm taking you there, as I promised from the beginning. Lessons every day that the spirit of light, the creator God, the Father, the Heavenly Father, teaches us every single day. And that is character development, innovation. And in our culture, we're talking about bringing it into our culture now, there's such a victim mentality. There's such a victim, oh, I'm a victim. I'm being attacked. No one agrees with me. I have my rights, like I've got my rights movements. Like, it's good to have rights, and I'm an advocate for rights of people who have been maligned and abused and mistreated over the years and the decades and the centuries. That is legitimate. But there is a toxic leaning into the other direction, where my rights and, oh, I'm a victim, I'm being attacked, and therefore, I demand this. There's a toxic swaying of the pendulum where that becomes too much, and it almost becomes a passive aggressive weapon that someone with a victimhood mentality, or culture with a victimhood mentality, will use and say, I'm going to put that on the healthy people and say, oh, I'm going to cry victim here. And I'm going to say, you owe me more. You owe me more. So it's demanding more and not giving back. So it would have been really easy for Joseph, when he was thrown in the pit, to just really get into a dither and say, okay, God, this is all your fault, and why am I here? And just really get into a sour mood. And who knows if he would have been promoted to Potiphar's house between the time that he was sold into Egypt as a slave and being in Potiphar's home. He could have just been a simple servant in Potiphar's house, but something happened along the way. Something clicked with Joseph where he realized, this is happening for a reason. Some of this is my fault and some of this is not. Did Joseph earn a spanking, so to speak, for opening his yap and bragging? Probably. Did he deserve to be thrown into a pit and sold into slavery into Egypt? Probably not. But that's what happened. And so Joseph embraced character development, innovation. He innovated. And so somewhere along the line, reading between the white, Joseph became trustworthy. He became glorious in the sight of God, but also in the sight of his master. Potiphar didn't even share the same beliefs as him. So he was promoted up the chain into, really, besides Potiphar's wife, everything else in Potiphar's home was at Joseph's disposal, which is what Joseph told Potiphar's wife when she tried to seduce him. He said, your master, your husband, has given me all authority and all control and all dominion over all things in his household, except for you, because you are his wife. And so he passed that test. I'm sure many of you know women from Egypt are very beautiful, and it would have been very easy in a pagan culture for him to cheat on his master and do it probably behind closed doors. And maybe she never would have said anything and nobody would have known, but God would have known. And Joseph would have known. So that was character development. He refused the delicacies of the world system. And he said, no, this is my character development. And then he took the hit for it. Once again, he goes into prison. Second time he's in prison. First time he's in the pit prison. Second time he was in prison. He passed that test. He innovated in that moment. And then while he was in prison, it could have been easy for him to think, oh man, God, I'm here again, the second time again. I'm following you. I'm doing everything that's right. I'm standing up for character. I'm standing up for what's good, and I'm still being punished. This is your fault. It could have been easy for him to turn his guns, his anger on God and say, this is all your fault. And this, I screw you, God, like all that kind of stuff. But Joseph didn't. He innovated again, and he used what was in his hand. And that was the gift of dream interpretation. And he interpreted 2 dreams for the butler and the baker and brought them out. And he used his gift to lift others out. Obviously, one of them had a good future and the other one didn't, because the other one was, his heart was not in the right place. So one prospered and one did not, of the two prisoners that he interpreted their dreams, but that's a whole different story. But Joseph passed his test again. He used what was in his hand. He innovated. He was countercultural. He looked in the other direction. He refused to see what was wrong with the world and what was wrong with him, and he triumphed, and he went into the other direction. And the final test was standing in front of Pharaoh. And after he interpreted Pharaoh's dream, he didn't assume to think, oh, well, I'm the one that should be chosen to be the administrator of the famine and then how to build up plenty for the land of Egypt. The old Joseph probably would have said, yes, everyone should bow to me. I have this gift. I should be your second in command. But Pharaoh was the one that invited Joseph forward to the table and said, you are the one. There can be no greater man for this job than this man himself, than Joseph. And he said, you shall be a chancellor over all my kingdom, and you shall have domain over the land of Egypt. Only I shall be greater than you. What a promotion. What a promotion that was from the Pharaoh, who saw the Spirit of God, the true Spirit of the holy gods was in Joseph. And he didn't even have the same worldview, the same culture and belief in the same higher power, but he saw that the Spirit of God was within Joseph. That was what distinguished Joseph from everyone else, all the magicians, all the chancellors, all the diviners, all the hustlers, all the brown nosers, all the ladder climbers. And he got into the place and said, I see that. I see a character that's bubbling up. I see something that's unique. So this is what we got to go with, guys. It's innovation, character development when life really sucks, when the pandemic has sucked, when the hardships have sucked, when the personal trials and the testings really suck. When what we're going through really sucks, it's, you know what, we have to see the bigger picture. MPA, multiple perspective advantage. I'm going to ask you right now, are you tired of hearing complaining? Are you a complainer? Does it build up or does it tear down? So I'm going to ask you this again. Are you tired of hearing complaining in our culture from other people? Are you a complainer? Does it build up or tear down? Does it give life or does it take from it? We must shift. Shifting our lives means we must provide motion, the economy of motion. Like a football player, I was watching a football game a couple of years ago, and the announcer said something really interesting. He said, there is an economy of motion moving forward from that running back. I was like, economy of motion, that's really something I can use in one of my talks. But what he was meaning was that runner, once his legs were moving, once his mindset was in place, once he realized, I'm going to get the ball to this place in the field, no matter what it takes, no matter what obstacle, no matter what linebacker I go through, this is the economy of motion. Everything is moving. There's no hesitation. And that's what we need to do within character development, within our lives, within what you and I are doing, dear listener, is the economy of motion. Moving forward, we must shift. We must not be afraid of responsibility. But we must provide motion. Faith sees solutions, not problems. So there's a lot of problems. I'm not saying be an ostrich with your head in the sand, no problems. Everything's okay. Everything's sunshine and rainbows. It's not true. Anyone who says that life is easy and there's no cost, there's no price, is lying. Anything that's valuable is going to be a significant cost. Anything that's cheap, there's going to be no cost to sitting on our butt and doing nothing. There's no cost to hustling and brown nosing. There really is no cost to buying into what the rhetoric of the media and the fear dogma and the false mindset from the media and just the propaganda. That's the word I'm looking for. There's no cost to buying into fear propaganda from the media. There's no cost to tuning into social media or listening to the voice of fear or to the obstacles and saying everything's too hard. There's a famine like there was in Egypt right now. Things are tough. I'm being victimized. I'm being misunderstood by family in the workplace. And I'm not advocating stay in bad situations. If there's a situation that truly is abusive or is not good for you, then by all means pull out of that. But there's a misinterpretation a lot of times that people make between hardship and testing of character and actual abuses. There are actual abuses and there are actual things and boundaries we need to put up. And I'm an advocate for boundaries as well. There's certain things that you just can't take. But there are things where there's God pushing the button saying, this is a test. This is character development. This is what I'm putting on your plate, my plate to go through. So what kind of character, as we wrap this up and get into questions and dream interpretation, here's the last couple minutes of my talk. Thanks for sticking with me. What kind of character do you and I want to become? What kind of character do we want to develop? Thank you, Malia. She says no callers yet. What kind of character do you and I want to become? What do we want to build? Who will be your example? We become what we behold. There's a principle in the realm of the spirit. What we become, we behold. Like this light. I've got this light here. I'm looking into the light. You can see my face. You can hear my voice. If we behold fear and we behold the voice of, I can't do it, you can't do it. We behold the voice of, oh, there's disease out there. Oh, we behold the voice of, oh, everything is dark in the world. We behold the voice of, you have to do this to be acceptable. You have to buy into that. That really doesn't sit well with our spirit. That is beholding the metric and the scales and really the worldview system of the Roman system, the world system, the Egyptian system, the system that really will only bring us more fear. Fear will never give birth to hope. So I'm going to say that again. Fear will never give birth to hope. Beholding fear, beholding doubt, beholding obstacles, fixating on disease, fixating on problems, fixating on I can't do it, fixating on, oh, life is tough, fixating on I'm a victim, fixating on people aren't fair, fixating on life isn't fair. After a while, when we fixate on these things, it's going to become a reality in our life. It will manifest. What we behold will manifest. We have to set our mind and our attention and our affections on things above, according to Colossians 3. Set our mind on things above, our spirit on things above. And do not labor for the food which perishes, but for the food which we will inherit to everlasting life. That's what Jesus taught his disciples. That's what Jesus taught his followers and those who followed him. Do not labor for the food which perishes, for the world system. Am I saying that money and influence and growing in our talents isn't important? I'm not saying that at all, but don't put your stock. Let's not put our stock in hustling for another buck. Let's not put our stock in how many people can, like how many followers we have on our social media, or how many important people liked or thumbed up or tweeted or commented on our Instagram, or how many people think we're wonderful. That's not the reason why we live. It's not real. Social media and followers and all that stuff and having thousands of friends or millions of friends, that's not the real world. The real world is here and now. You and I walking with our higher power, you and I walking with God in the cool of the day, in the garden, like in Eden, and being restored to our inheritance in the land of Eden before the world became full of sin and full of darkness and full of animosity and people at each other's throats. We need to get back to the place of character development like Joseph, back to the place of innovation, back to the place of building our reality. And what we behold, we become. God's laws of the quantum world, the quantum realm scientifically teaches us that when we engage continually in something, that reflection shapes us. So I'm going to say that again, because that's a huge revy right now. Deposit into your spirit, into my spirit. The quantum world and the quantum laws of this is science, guys. This isn't just God's law. This is the law of the realm of what we look at. God's laws of the quantum world teach us when we engage continually in something, that reflection shapes us. If we continually look into light, we're eventually going to beam light. If we continue to look into darkness, we're going to become dark. How do I know this? If you put somebody in the dark for long enough, like think of the miners and the people who they pull out of those accidents, or people who get buried in those mine shafts and they're in there for days or weeks or months. I think there are some miraculous stories of rescuing and survival people who are in the mine shafts. Eventually, when you're in that darkness for that long, your vision becomes clouded into where you can't see straight. Beholding darkness for that long is not what any human being was built or designed for. In the light, when we look at the light, when we behold the light, we see clear. We see clearly. Innovation, building personal character through these difficult times like Joseph. We have to look into the light. We have to see that life is not always against us. And when it is against us, maybe it isn't always a horrible, evil thing, but there's innovation. There's an opportunity. There's an opportunity to build. How many people, I want to ask you this right now, how many of your friends in your circle or your family in your circle, people in your workplace talk like this, where it's like the problems that they have in their relationships or their family or their work or their goals and their dreams and their personal developments, say problems arise. How many people you hear about in your workplace, your family, look at problems and say, you know what, maybe there's something I'm supposed to learn here. Maybe there's something I need to grow on, as opposed to saying, oh, this is just so unfair. This is just such a crappy deal. This is, my goodness, crappy. So, all right. We have a caller. So Edvin from Washington State has a question or a dream interpretation then, Aaliyah. So let's let him in.
Hello, Edvin.
Caller number one, Edvin from Washington State, standing by.
Edvin, you're on air.
Hi, Caleb. How you doing, man?
Check 1, 2, 3.
How you doing?
Check 1, 2, 3.
You hear me?
Can you hear him? He's
Can't
Hello?
hear you yet, Malia. So if he's got a question, maybe you can type it out
okay.
in the chat, or dream interpretation he wants interpreted. Then I can answer that question if we're having technical difficulties. That might be easier. So I'm going to continue to talk for the next few minutes. But if Edvin has a question or a dream interpretation he wants interpreted, please just hit me in the chat here, and then we'll go after that, because I think I can't hear any sound at all. So, as we're talking about character development, this is huge. This is absolutely massive in our lives, like Joseph, taking across the principalizing bridge and applying it to our lives. Applying it to our lives. And really, character development is how we're going to be able to handle the weight of responsibility and gifting and growth in our individual lives and corporately in other people's lives. Character is more important than gifting. You can't unteach being an a-hole. I'm not going to swear on the air, but you can't unteach being a jerk, but you can teach gifting. You can teach skills, but we have to have the foundation of character. It has to be a choice. So I'm going to leave you with this, because we're in the last final few minutes of our show, and I don't see anything in the chat yet from Edvin from Washington State. Maybe he can submit the question later. So I'm going to leave you with this, wherever you are right now. I want you to close your eyes or put your hands over your eyes or ears, whatever, and I'm going to bless you with a blessing, the blessing of the Creator, the blessing of my higher power, my great light of the universe, the Father of lights, Yeshua, the Kadosh Ruach, Yah, the holy breath of God, Jehovah Sidkenu, the Lord our righteousness, Jehovah Kadesh, the Lord who sanctifies, Jehovah Rapha, the healer, Jehovah Jireh, the provider, and El Olam. Yes, Edwin is back in. Want to try again? Yes, we can try that out if we've got a few minutes. I know we've got 7 minutes left, but let's give it another shot.
Hey,
I can hear you. I can hear you, Edvin. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Caleb. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. I just had a dream that I'd like to have interpreted by you, just because it's been on my mind. So,
sure.
I was on the I-5 freeway, and I've had dropped off my lady's parents off at the airport. But on the way back, I got a flat tire, and I had to deal with all that comes with, roadside assistance and whatnot. And it practically took my whole night away from me. And the other night, I had a dream that it was like winter. Everybody was driving on the opposite sides of the road, like nothing really made sense. And I was with my girlfriend again, and I saw a bunch of other big trucks driving around. I was like, oh, I wonder if my car can make it through the snow. And I don't even barely step on the gas, and I move forward maybe just 5 feet, and then all of a sudden I hear screeching noises coming from my car. And I go outside, I look at my wheels, and then all of a sudden all of my wheels look like they've been slashed. And another guy comes up to me, and he looks like he's, Middle Eastern. I don't know why. But he comes up to me and he's like, hey, man, I got a great deal on some wheels for you. I can get you 5, with an extra spare, and I can get you, for a good deal. And he said, go down the street. And I went down the street, but I couldn't find even any tire place. And I was just looking around, felt lost, and then I woke up.
Okay, cool. All right, Evan. So I'm going to go through this really quickly because I've got 3 minutes to the end. I want to make sure I interpret this properly. So you had 2 separate dreams then? You had one where your fires were slashed, or is that in real life? And then you had the snow dream. So, So with the snow dream, I'm going to address that one there. So I think your higher power, your creator, God, is actually meeting you and giving you a vocational life altering shift for the wheels of your individual calling. And because right now, the spirit that you carry, the ability that you carry is countercultural, because all the traffic's going in the other direction, and they're in the middle of the winter of human content, so to speak. There's a winter state, there's a frozen state of where culture is. And I think this is a message to you and our culture of going in the opposite direction. So you're being called in the opposite direction. You're beginning a vehicle upgrade of the 4 corners, which is creativity and your individual calling by your higher power, by the creator. And even though it doesn't look conventional, abandoning the vehicle that you once were on and going on the road on foot, even though you couldn't find the place where the tires were, maybe the tires wasn't exactly a physical thing, but it was more of a state of being for you, of getting out of that vehicle and going on foot was the calling from your creator. So I think it's encouraging for you, Edmund, that God is encouraging you. He's meeting you on the road and taking you in the opposite direction of where culture is frozen in. And really, you're just getting on your feet and going in the opposite way. So whatever that means to you, but so that's great, Evan. So in conclusion here, listeners, thank you for coming on the show. I bless you in the name of Kadosh Ruah Yah, the holy breath of God, El Olam, the ancient one, that your eyes and ears would be opened up to the realm of the spirit, dreams and visions. Angels would ascend and descend in your night season, in your dreams, like Edvin's dream right now, that you go in the opposite direction of the culture and you be guided by your higher power, by the creator, by Jesus, by God, into the opposite direction and into a new way of walking and living. May character and innovation be blessed, and the spirit of character and innovation be given to each one of you in the name of Jesus. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And thank you, Colette, for having me on The Truth is Funny, Transformation Talk Radio. Bye for now, and see you next time. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens, with Colette Marie Stefan, gracing the airwaves every Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Pacific since 2013. And we're live on Facebook, providing nuggets of wisdom from her book, The Truth is Funny, and 3-card consultations from Tales of the Vector Oracle. Colette has poured 14 years of energetic upgrades into this deck, and we can all predict what will happen if you continue in your wanton ways. Check out how you can become an official modern-day Dragon Sayer by visiting thetruthisfunny.com. Energetic upgrades to lift you, shift you, and power you to ride the wave of infinite potential. You are a blank canvas. May as well paint a rainbow. We'd love to hear from you. Call in next week. 1-800-930-2819.